The second annual Tri-State Megabucks Doubles Tournament of Champions kicked off last week, and it was the team of Chuck Godzyk and Peter Flynn jumping out with 4 consecutive marks at the start of the match. A 49-pin lead after Game 1 proved to be too tough to overcome for Paul St. Pierre and Steve Reno. Godzyk and Flynn finished with a 400 triple and earned their way into today's match against the 4th-seeded team of Jack Saniuk and Brian McKinley. This is Week 2 of the Tri-State Megabucks Doubles Tournament of Champions.
WNDS Sports and Tri-State Megabucks present Stars and Strikes Doubles. Stars and Strikes Doubles is sponsored in part by Somerville Lumber. Stars and Strikes Doubles is produced in conjunction with the New Hampshire Candlepin Bowling Association. And now your hosts, Doug Brown and Dan Murphy.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Londonderry Bowling Center. This is Week 2 of the Stars and Strikes Doubles Tournament of Champions. Doug Brown along with Dan Murphy, glad to have you with us. And last week, a big week for Peter Flynn and Chuck Godzyk, a 400, almost breaking the record for Stars and Strikes Doubles triple score, falling 1 pin short, in fact, but they got the big win, and now they're looking for number 2.
Yeah, as we say with doubles, if you can get out of the gate real fast, and they did with 4 marks, and they just never look back.
All right, let's meet our 2 teams for this week's second match in the Stars and Strikes Doubles Tournament of Champions. First, our returning winners from last week and our number 5-seeded team from Manchester, New Hampshire, Chuck Godzyk, and his partner from Bradford, Massachusetts, Peter Flynn.
Okay, Chuck averaging 121, high single of 199. Peter Flynn averaging 134 and his high single 211.
And last week, Chuck and Peter combined for a 400 to beat Paul St. Pierre and Steve Reno. And so now they move on to face our number 4-seeded team. And this was kind of an interesting situation. We had a tie resulting from the 3-game totals in the 2 series championship matches. Jack Saniuk and Brian McKinley lost a 1-string roll-off, so now they have to bowl the extra match. It's critical at any time, but even more so in this series because there are more matches to roll.
Well, you know, it could work the other way. If they have a tough match but able to squeak out a win, it may help them just loosen them up for the next match, but we'll see.
All right, let's meet them. Again, they are our 4th-seeded team. From Quincy, Massachusetts, Jack Saniuk, and from Hudson, New Hampshire, his partner, Brian McKinley.
Okay, Jack averaging 125, high single 199, and Brian comes in averaging 121 and a high single of 192.
And, of course, the winners will move on to Week 3 next week. The runners-up today will share 5th-place prize money of $200. We've got lots to come here on this hour on Stars and Strikes Doubles. The Tri-State Megabucks Tournament of Champions continues, and we'll get it started right after these messages. Don't go away. All right, last week, if you missed it, Chuck Godzyk and Peter Flynn with the big 400. By the way, the scores you see on the right are the qualifying scores in the championship matches that brought these teams here. So 3rd and 4th place decided by that 1-string roll-off. That roll-off won by Bill Hart and Mark Arnold. So they get the number 3 spot, so they'll be here next week to face the winners of this match today. And then you see the teams that are coming in the weeks to come. Brian Fuller, Steve Vadney, Gary Carrington, Joe Ashline. That's the way it lines up here for our second Tri-State Megabucks Doubles Tournament of Champions, and we have a large crowd on hand for this match, Week 2, and Peter Flynn to start it. And he starts it with 2.
Week 2, start with 2. Not quite what Peter had in mind. Half was to right.
Ooh. Looked like he intended to play that on the inside. He was trying to make it that way, but just a little too far to the right. And that's what he was trying to do.
He didn't miss it by much, that second ball. A lot of bowlers would say, well, no, I'm just going to get as many as I can, but Peters says, no, I'm going to go right after it again. Aggressive.
And a fine ball to recover. And a quick 9 drop.
And just the 4-pin. Piece of wood in front. No problem. They're in the second.
Jack Saniuk now to start for the team of Saniuk and McKinley.
5, 8, and 10.
No. And it's an 8-box for Jack. Jack Saniuk and Brian McKinley qualified for the tournament back on December 27th with a 381 to beat Bob Kelly and Bob Mazur. For both Jack and Brian, it's their first appearance in a Tri-State Megabucks Tournament of Champions.
Peter looks at the 4 horsemen to the right. A piece of wood that may cost him this one if he splits the 1 and the 3.
But certainly Jack and Brian have been around on our shows a lot. Both with a lot of appearances. Chuck Godzyk now working on that mark left by his partner Peter Flynn. The 6 drop.
Look better than that. The 5, 7, 9, 10 piece of wood angled toward him between the 5 and the 9. Wants to get as much of that as he can.
And it'll be a 9. Last week for the team of Godzyk and Flynn, 14 marks, 13 spares, 1 strike, and a 400. By the way, the 13 spares for the team was a doubles Tournament of Champions record, breaking the old record of 12 held by Mike Morrill and Jack Quinn last year.
1, 2, 9, and 10 was a piece of wood, rolled off, so he's got no help. He's going to have to do it all himself. That close. .45 through 4.
And now our 4th bowler to step up is Brian McKinley. Oh, nice pocket hit for Brian.
5 and 8, piece of wood out in front. He's to the right of the red line. Should have no problem.
There it is, first mark for the team. Well, Brian, a fine bowler, of course, but also a big fan of the game, and he's here quite a lot for our Stars and Strikes tapings when he has a chance. Brian right back in the pocket again, and this time the 5-pin.
It's going to be the 5-pin by itself. Pretty good ball. He knocked down 9. He only left 1 other pin on the plate. That's one you can see in the right-hand channel. Pulls that one to the left, just missing the 5. And again.
So it's all even after 4 boxes. 45 apiece. Tri-State Megabucks presenting all the action here on Stars and Strikes doubles in our Tournament of Champions. Just imagine being rich. Tri-State Megabucks.
He was trying to imagine a strike right there, and
didn't imagine quite hard enough.
No. Had the pins dancing, and he misses a single. So turn around, fair play. Both teams missing single pins for spares.
Well, I think one thing that might have been concerning Chuck Godzyk and Peter Flynn at the end of last week's match, Dan, is the fact that even though they won, and they won with a good score of 400, they weren't quite as sharp at the end of the match as they were at the beginning. And made a comment at the time last week when they get off to that quick start, not to get complacent, not to get too overconfident, to try and keep your focus and forget what the score is and just keep what you're supposed to be doing. And I think maybe they might have been a little concerned about that at the end of last week's show.
No lead is safe. Go back to the match. I know Chuck Langlois was involved. I think, can't remember exactly the match, but there was a swing of over 100 pins. I remember there, one of those matches that you thought it was over early after 7 boxes, but it can turn around in a hurry. 2 and 5 left for Jack Saniuk.
Jack from Quincy, Mass. Works as a division comptroller for State Street Bank, and Jack misses a spare lead. Jack does a lot of his bowling at the Wallex lanes in Waltham, Mass. There's a 10, so each team missing some spare opportunities here early.
Yes, legitimate spare opportunities. No roadblocks in front, no deadwood that's going to hurt the shot. Just plain ordinary missing the shots left and right.
And let's see, the 7-pin will stay up this time.
5-7, piece of wood in front of the 7, but I believe he'll probably try to cut the 5-pin over.
Remember, the winners of this match will advance to next week's 3rd week of the Tournament of Champions. And Bill Hart and Mark Arnold will be here for that match. And what an incredible role they have been on. Immediately prior to the start of the Tournament of Champions 2 weeks ago, Bill and Mark completed a run of 4 wins. Neither of them had ever been on the show before. They combined for 4 straight wins with some terrific scores, too, including their 381 that got them into the tournament. And they'll be here next week. Oh, nice conversion there for the 10 box for Chuck Godzyk.
Cut the 5 into the 10. Watch this.
Oh, and that's how to carry that momentum over as he strikes on lane 29.
Just a matter if that ball is going to get up fast enough, breaking to the left, and he buries it right in the pocket for the strike. Brian McKinley for the 7th and 8th frames.
Brian works for Purity Supermarkets in Plastow, New Hampshire. Brian and his wife Debbie live in Hudson. Does most of his bowling at the Lita lanes in Nashua and also right here in Londonderry. And Brian takes an 8. Just 1 pin the difference right now through 7, but let's strike up in the 8th for Godzyk and Flynn.
Good-looking ball. Tripped out that 7-pin, leaves himself the 6-10, and he has a choice. Well, one of the choices just disappeared. Now he's got just the wood. Which is not a bad choice to have. Spare in the 8th.
2 marks for each team. Peter Flynn on the strike, and yes,
double.
for the double.
Just a matter of would the 4-pin go or not.
Double strike.
And this is obviously a real big ball. A little heavy on the head pin. Looked better than what he ended up with anyways. Half dozen. 2, 4, 7 on the left with a 10-pin.
For the spare. Yes. 128 with a ball to come. Out of nowhere, a a late flurry here.
Yeah, 72 after 7, a 102 clip, and be well above that now.
Just 5 on the mark, 133, but 61 pins in the last 3 frames.
And Jack Saniuk has a spare working the 8th. Going to try to do something similar.
Oh, and he has a nice fill, a 9 drop, leaving the 4.
But he can't clear the 4.
There's a mark in the 9th. Well, if Jack were to get a big fill and another mark, he might be able to successfully counterbalance that double strike. At least pull this thing close. Going into game 2. Let's see, pretty good looking ball again, 8.
This is 110. He won't have the lead, but he could be awfully close.
For the spare? No. Slides by. So it'll be a double-digit lead for Chuck Godzyk and Peter Flynn after 1 game. But not the size lead they had last week after 1 game when they led by 49. This week their lead will be 13. 133 for Godzyk and Flynn, 120 for Saniuk and McKinley. We're back with game 2 in a minute.
Let's see if the 13-pin lead is lucky or not. We're starting the 2nd game. The opposite team starts. That would be Brian McKinley.
On lane 30, and he's right through the middle. Oh, nice cut shot. Maybe he's thinking he should have played it that way the first time. That for the 10. Brian overall making his 15th appearance here on Stars and Strikes. Jack Saniuk, his partner, making his 16th appearance. Say, a lot of experience on this team.
And again, flush in the head pin, this time the spread eagle.
Brian's had to work hard these 2 frames, hasn't he?
That's for sure. He's going to go back and say, come on, partner, I need some help.
Chuck Godzyk will lead it off for our leaders. That was just the 2nd 400 triple in doubles Tournament of Champions play last week. The other one was last year, 401 for Joe Ashline and Steve Vadney. Not quite for Chuck.
Everything but the 5, and you can see the 5 is still rocking.
I have a feeling that sometime before the end of this series, that 401 will be a distant memory.
I think you might be right. Some heavy hitters all the way through.
Of course, we talked about the great story of Bill Hart and Mark Arnold have been writing here. They'll be here next week as our number 3 seeds. The following week, a very interesting team. Brian Fuller and Steve Vadney. Steve Vadney has been here more than any other bowler. As Chuck Godzyk gets robbed on the spare. Steve has been here more than any other bowler, but this is only the 2nd time that he's qualified for a Tournament of Champions. Of course, last year he was with Joe Ashline to win this event. And his partner, Brian Fuller, has never lost on Stars and Strikes. He's 5-0.
Big ball by Jack Saniuk, everything but the 10.
No. and the 10. Our participating sponsors for the Stars and Strikes Doubles Tournament of Champions, our friends at Somerville Lumber. Get it right the first time at any Somerville Lumber location. Gagnon's Furniture, Hudson, New Hampshire. For all your furniture and flooring needs, visit Gagnon's Furniture. And Mattress Cloud of Manchester, Salem, and Nashua, your discount bedding store, Mattress Cloud. And 2 opens for Jack Saniuk. Jack taking care of some house cleaning for Peter Flynn on lane 29. Peter Flynn, the only left-handed bowler in this year's tournament.
You stole a little of my thunder. I was going to say, Peter is the best left-hander we have in the entire tournament. And a 10 box for Peter. So we're still looking for our first mark from either team this second game. Peter's team, Peter and Chuck Godzyk, still leading by 15. Came in leading by 13 and increased it by 2 more.
Well, you can't really call this a spare leave, but there is a piece of wood in front.
And there is a reset button. Yeah, if there's a way, Peter will find one. 4, 5, 7. Piece of wood in front of the 5, but I'm going to give that a try, but this was really nothing there.
And we'll take a break. Pretty good match going. Neither team able to really take advantage in this second game so far, but Godzyk and Flynn still with the lead now by 16. We'll return in a minute. Back we are. Week number 2. Stars and Strikes Doubles Tournament of Champions. So glad you made us part of your day. Three more weeks, we'll have all the action for you here on the Winds as the Tournament of Champions roll on. Next Sunday at noon, week 3. First in singles, then at 1 o'clock here in doubles.
Just barely catching the headpin one. A little more of the headpin for the 9 and 10. And again, we're still waiting for our first mark of the second game.
Then, of course, don't forget, over the summer, after the Tournament of Champions is concluded in 3 more weeks, we'll have some of our best shows from the past season, all during the summer for you here on the Winds. And then next fall, God willing, it's our 10th season.
Wow. And again, no marks. 54 through 6.
Three marks for the team of Saniuk and McKinley, 4 marks for Godzyk and Flynn, all of them in the first game. But now a 9 drop for Chuck Godzyk.
And you're going to have to watch the wood.
Yes.
That'll give him 48 through 5 plus the bonus ball.
I think if there was any danger with that shot, Dan, it was off to the right. Chuck made sure that he was well to the left. Turn that one over a little bit.
Half dozen, 54 through 5.
6-pin is still there. $10. And they've added 10 more to the lead in this second game. It's now 23. Jack Saniuk. And Jack correctly called that one as he put 2 fingers up.
'63 through 7. Well, that's a break there with this 10-pin going down. Now let's see what we can do with this wood. 7-8 left.
5 pieces of wood on the plate. 6 of the 8 pins that Jack knocked down are still in view.
That close.
Nope. And I'm not sure about that one. Yeah, it looked like a 9. Peter Flynn. Oh, big pocket hit, and yes, taps out the 10-pin. That piece of wood in the channel came up to tap out the 10. Watch it. Right there.
Just nudging it, enough to knock the 10-pin over. Two and 7 left for Peter. Trying to go spare on strike and increasing the lead. Yes.
Yeah, what a shot. What a shot on the 2-7.
Played on the inside, ball caroms off the 2-pin into the 7.
And all of a sudden, that lead is getting sizable again, as it did last week for Godzyk and Flynn. Jack Saniuk and Brian McKinley have not been able to put a mark up in this game.
And I don't like the looks of that piece of wood in between the 2 and the 4 either. Nice play on the outside. That's the correct way of doing that. Got the benefit of all the wood because he turned it. A much-needed spare.
The 4th mark of the match for Brian and Jack. All spares for them. Godzyk and Flynn have 3 strikes already, including a double. Still going to be less than 100, though, for the game. A 9 and 96. And a 2-game total of 216 for Saniuk and McKinley. Chuck Godzyk on a spare. 8.
8 in the 5-7. Piece of wood next to the 5. Going to try to shoot at the red line on the piece of wood. Hope he can jump the pin over. No, it's on the inside.
This lead is going to be at least 30. Maybe more. Could be over 40 with a mark. Four horsemen right, minus the 10-pin and the 7.
One horse got loose.
He's on the other side. The 1, 3, 6, and 7, no. So as they did last week, Chuck Godzyk and Peter Flynn will have a rather sizable lead going into the 3rd and final game, 120 and a 253. So the lead is 37 with 1 game to go. Stars and Strikes doubles. Tournament of Champions action continues in a minute. Peter Peter Flynn to start game 3, his team with the lead.
Quest for 3 in a row. Half wish to left. This is where he started off the match with. Half wish to right, I should say.
Well, you really can't expect, of course, Peter and Chuck had that big win last week, looking for 2 in a row here today, but you can't really expect that you're going to have a huge win like that all the time, but they might be headed for one if Jack and Brian don't catch fire here in game 3. Nice 10 for Peter.
And you see that 10 box, using the wood effectively for the 7. 37 pins. And you got to figure you've got to throw about a 140 game and hope they have a subpar game, as Jack Saniuk and Brian McKinley just had at 96.
And no, Peter doesn't get the mark. So that does leave an opening. Jack Saniuk will be leading off for the team of Saniuk and McKinley in this 3rd game.
And certainly the potential is there with Jack Saniuk and Brian McKinley to throw a big string this final one.
$200 is the prize money to our runner-up team today. Winners, of course, move on to face Bill Hart and Mark Arnold next week. What a story they have been. And the spare. Just asked Jack Saniuk and Brian McKinley about Bill Hart and Mark Arnold. They got smoked in the 1-game roll-off. Bill and Mark put 56 pins on the board in the last 3 boxes to get a 148 to claim the number 3 seed. But how about this start for Jack Saniuk?
Well, there goes 10 pins of that lead very quickly. And always the potential of throwing a double. A double now. This match is just about even.
Chuck Godzyk. Bill Hart and Mark Arnold rolled a 148 to win that 1-game roll-off over Jack Saniuk and Brian McKinley, who had a 102. That's why Jack and Brian are here this week. And Bill and Mark aren't here until next week. Chuck Godzyk looking for a spare leave to happen, and
well, at first I thought he wanted the 3-pin to stay up, but now he's got a couple pieces of wood. One straight across, another one angled at him in the back. Let's see. No, and they will be open. First 4.
Well, you talked about the possibility of a double strike. Even if Brian McKinley can get up there and add another mark in his next 2, it'll make things a lot tighter. That's a 10 for Chuck. He took a little extra time with it.
Well, you alluded to it last week where they kind of come up flat that 3rd game. And it was a decent game, but they weren't as sharp as they were the first 2. Starting out that way this week.
Oh, Brian on a strike. Got to be careful for this ball now. This is the important one. 7 fill on the strike. So they've cut 17 off the lead. It's down to 20. Mark here, make things real interesting.
Certainly will.
Well, he'll have a shot at one, the 6-10.
He's got to try to play this just like the wood wasn't there. Just drive the ball straight back through the 6 and then the 10.
That's it. We'll take a break. The team of Brian McKinley and Jack Saniuk making a run here in game 3. We'll be back with more in a minute. Peter Flynn. His team in the lead, but they're in a bit of a dry spell here.
Trying to throw a little water on the fire that's brewing on the other side of the score sheet. 56 through 4 for Jack Saniuk and Brian McKinley, plus the bonus ball coming.
Oh, there's a big spare right there, and Peter liked that one a lot.
And not an easy one. Sleeper in the back, the 8-pin, needs some help off the sidewall with the head pin for the spare.
Just catching the head pin. This may be a 9, Phil. Let's see. Nope, 8.
No, but worse than that, the wood turned a little bit for him. Not for him, against him. It had a good angle when it rested against the 2-pin. Then it had a chance to move.
Wow. Looked like something hit the 10-pin coming down, but did not take it out. Nine box. And the call goes out to Jack Saniuk now. Remember, he's working on a mark left by his partner. And he's off the head pin with a half Worcester. That, combined with the fact that they're now opposite a mark, is going to give up some pins here. And Jack takes a 6 box. And all of a sudden, the lead is back to 30. Off the head pin again, but at least a shot to make something happen here on the spare.
1, 2, 7, and 9. Piece of wood in front of the 7.
No. And the 10. So the lead is 29 with 4 boxes to go. One rotation left, Chuck Godzyk. And Chuck lost that one off to the left.
29 pins. Let's translate into 4 marks.
Boy, it looked like Chuck had that for a spare. There was a collision between 2 pins and
stopped it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good pen, Charlie.
9 box.
Come back now, let's go.
400 last week for Godzyk and Flynn. They had to work a little harder this week. 2, 5, and 7.
Very makeable spare. Wood in between the 2 and the 5. This could be a backbreaker right here. Oh, he's gone way left. So there's still some light. The team of Jack Saniuk and Brian McKinley.
And a 9 box. So 2 opens. Well, pretty much got to be 2 marks here for Brian McKinley in some form or another, because they trail by 29. Well, he's on the head pin, but right through the heart.
Doesn't want a bad frame. Still probably do it with 3 marks, but they would need some help from Peter Flynn in the form of a bad box. Or Jack's going to have to throw strikes.
And if Brian doesn't put a mark up here in the 8th, there's a chance they could get closed out either way. And half Worcester left. Boy, you wonder sometimes what makes it all turn. Jack Saniuk and Brian McKinley had 3 solid marks in the first 4 boxes of this 3rd game. They had cut the lead under 20. And then the next thing you know, they're back in the soup again. 2 boxes to go now.
And a 30-pin lead for Peter Flynn.
Which means if he gets 31 pins, he will close them out.
All over that, Peter, all over that.
Of course, you'd need 2 marks for 31 pins. Shooting at the 10 pin first. Single pin conversion for the spare. The big fill.
Go, Peter, there you go.
2-4 left. Trying to finish with 2 marks in a row.
Well, mathematically, it's still possible for Jack Saniuk. It'll have to be strikes, though, and a lot of them. 112, 365 for Godzyk and Flynn. That means that Jack Saniuk is going to have to get a 150 up on the board. And now it's in the books. Chuck Godzyk and Peter Flynn have made it 2 in a row. A spare in the 9th for Jack Saniuk.
Just pushes the wood back into the cluster of 4 pins, and there's a lead for you. 3, 5, 7, and 9.
Now, Jack and Brian will win this battle, but not the war. And how about that shot? They'll win this battle, but not the war. Terrific shot by Jack Saniuk. Certainly worth another look. 117 plus a ball.
Take it, it's one of your better
And Jack will have to reset. As he was trying to clear out a piece of wood. That's just been the kind of day it is. Ironically, Jack and Brian now with 9 marks in the match, 5 of them here in the 3rd game. But they weren't quite able to put a couple more up there early enough to make it a threat. And boy, all the breaks coming now. There's an 8 drop and a 125, a 331 for the team of Saniuk and McKinley. It's win number 2 in a row for Godzyk and Flynn. Make it 341 for Saniuk and McKinley. We'll be back to talk to the bowlers and set you up for next week right after these words. Back here at the Londonderry Bowling Center, Doug Brown along with Dan Murphy, who will rejoin me shortly. Week 2 of the Stars and Strikes Doubles Tournament of Champions in the books. And let's call up our runner-up team. A round of applause for Brian McKinley and Jack Saniuk. 5th place prize money, you guys will share $200. And, well, there was an opportunity at least in the 3rd and in the 2nd game, too, to try and close the lead, but just not enough time to get back in it, I guess.
Just didn't bowl well enough. I mean, we had our chances. I mean, I got up there and, you know, two fill in a 6 box just, you know, takes a little heart out of you, too. And, you know, what can you do? We can't bowl like that and expect to win.
These guys, Chuck and Peter, have been making a habit of getting out to the big lead, too, and I guess it's better to go in front if you have a choice in a short match.
Well, Peter got that big double in the first game, and it was a tough struggle from there, and we just couldn't catch. We could bowl 10 more strings to not catch up to him.
Well, we don't have time for that, guys, so sorry, but thanks very much, and congratulations for making it here, and again, enjoy the prize money, and we'll hope to see you again in the fall.
Hope so.
All right, Jack, thanks very much, Brian. We appreciate it. And Peter and Chuck are already on the way. They know what's coming up next. They know the drill at this point. Right. Peter and Chuck, congratulations again. Kind of a similar match, though, to last week, and not the big score for you guys, not as big as last week, but yet a little drop-off in the 2nd game, a chance to let them back in, but they weren't able to do it on you.
Yeah, we got out to the front, and that was...
Just get the early lead and hang on, right?
Hang on or run away or do whatever you got to do to win, you know? I got to put my 2 cents with it for my sponsor, Grandpa's Printing and Lawrence. How's that?
All right.
Okay.
We got it in.
Puts a lot of my bills. So
all right, very good. And as far as footing the bills, you guys now move up the ladder, and it'll be week 3 next week, and you know you have Bill Hart and Mark, Bill Hart and Mark Arnold coming in, and they've been writing a terrific story here on Stars and Strikes Doubles. They've been very hot and coming in, and now they're going to be your next opponent. Quick thoughts about that match?
Well, we can get out to the start again and see if we can bowl the second and third string this time.
So you'd take 4 or 5 marks in a row at the beginning again, right?
Oh, you bet.
Yeah, okay. Thanks a lot, guys. Congratulations, and we'll see you next week. Peter Flynn and Chuck Godzyk, 2 in a row. And here's the way it sets up for next week. Week 3, remember, of 5 here on the Tournament of Champions. And it'll be Chuck Godzyk and Peter Flynn, our number 5 seeds, coming back to try and make it 3 in a row. And Bill Hart and Mark Arnold, if folks have been with us here at the end of the season here on Stars and Strikes Doubles, you know what they did. They won 4 in a row just to get here. And now they've got to be in a position to win 3 in a row to win it again. But it's certainly an interesting story to watch for, especially with these guys bowling well.
They have to be the Cinderella team. If you took all the names and put them in front of people, those are least famous, if you want to call them famous, but they certainly know who they are if they've been watching the show the last few weeks.
Yeah, Bill and Mark are getting famous.
Absolutely.
In a big hurry. All right, we'll be back next week. Remember, 2 full hours starting Sunday at 12 noon here on the Winds. It'll be week 3 of the Tri-State Megabucks Tournament of Champions. We'll hope you'll be able to join us. In the meantime, for Dan Murphy and the whole Winds crew, I'm Doug Brown. Have a good week, everybody.